Hello, friends from Five Reasons. Welcome back to our Marlins report. This week, earlier this week, when I was at American Airlines Arena, I was talking a little bit about the Adam Duval signing. But today, we're actually going to have a little more of a discussion and analysis of what's going on in the Marlins off season and all the trades and signings that have been going on. Earlier today, we had the announcement, right, that Dylan Floro is the new arm that's coming to the Marlins bullpen. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that with David Fernandez, and of course, with my Marlins lager right here. We're gonna start drinking it in a little bit. Let me open it, and then we will start with the fun here in our Marlins report. Here we go. All right, David, how are you, man? Now you can start talking. I can start.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I drank up all my Marlins lagers. I couldn't wait
I
for
noticed.
I couldn't wait for the next show. So I've got to go out to to the store and pick up another 6-pack.
Right, and or we can call Megan and tell her, hey, we need more. We need more because that's our fuel to do this,
Yeah,
to do this show, right?
I
So
won't
okay.
say no to that.
Definitely. All right, it's Friday night. We're ready to go party or whatever you guys do on a Friday night in Miami. You shouldn't go party. You should just stay home, watch a movie, watch a series, whatever you do. But we can talk about baseball. This is a great time to talk about baseball and talk about the Marlins. Dylan Floro, a new arm. We were expecting signings. We probably didn't expect bullpen arm coming in a trade, right? We thought with so much talent available out there, and especially the way the free agency is going with not a lot of money being spent to get actually good players. We thought maybe the Marlins could be involved in one of those. Adam Duvall was one of those, and we'll talk about it. But first, Dylan Floro, what kind of pitcher is he? Where do you see him? What did the Dodgers ask for him? What did the Marlins lose in this trade? And what's going on with Floro there?
So yeah, the news for this one broke earlier this afternoon, right? And
Yeah.
sent Marlins Twitter into a tizzy. People freaking out. Some people saying that the Marlins were fleeced. Some people saying that the Marlins fleeced the Dodgers. And obviously the reality is we're not going to know until we see these guys get on the mound. But Dylan Floro is a good pitcher, and he's been a good major league capable reliever for several years. And I think one of the most important things to consider when you're thinking about this, revamped bullpen that the Marlins are putting together, he's somebody that's coming on board that has a good deal of experience, right? And not only just major league experience, right? But he has postseason experience, and he has experience pitching in the World Series, pitching at literally the highest level of the sport.
Right.
And he struck out Randy Arozarena, I think, in Game 2 or something like that on like 3 pitches.
Right.
When Arozarena was like lighting the world on fire at that point in time. So he's a good pitcher, and he is 100% an upgrade on Brandon Kinsler. I know that Marlins Twitter was upset when news broke that Kinsler took a minor league deal for $3 million with the Phillies instead of a $2 million major league deal with the Marlins. And people were talking about how, oh my God, the Marlins are being cheap again. Maybe they definitely offered Kinsler a contract, but
Right.
Maybe they didn't want to go any further because they saw a guy like Floro available, and Floro is younger, and all of his statistics are better. He is every meaningful percentile rank on StatCast, on Baseball Savant. He has a better number than Kinsler. He was in the 94th percentile or above last year in exit velocity, hard hit percentage, walk percentage, barrel percentage. I mean, so many of the advanced statistics that people look at nowadays to evaluate pitchers. He is a good pitcher, and he is somebody that has a great deal of experience. Now, he's not somebody that's going to blow you away with a fastball. His pitching arsenal, he throws sinkers probably more than anything else. He throws sliders. He's got a changeup, so he's not a strikeout guy. He's not a high strikeout guy, but he's a ground ball guy, very much like Kinsler. Again, right. Kinsler wasn't a big strikeout guy. He was a ground ball guy. You will always remember the double play that he induced against the Yankees to get the Marlins into the postseason. I mean, that's gonna be something that Marlins fans remember for a long time, But Floro does the same sort of thing, right? And he seems to do it at a better rate than Kinsler. So he's absolutely somebody that's going to go into the back end of this bullpen into high leverage situations. Now, does he become the closer? Is it Yimi Garcia? Is it
Yeah, that's the question. Who's going to be the closer right now? Who would be your closer?
You know what? I would probably start with giving Floro a look because of his experience, right? And because he's done it at the highest level. From there, you think about maybe Yimi Garcia because his stuff, it probably will miss more bats, right? And you want to minimize the amount of runners on base, particularly late in games. But me personally, I would probably start with Floro and then maybe Garcia after that, and then maybe Bass. We know that Don Mattingly doesn't do like a closer by committee. He's going to pick one of them, and they're going to have to perform. But we'll see. I absolutely think that this is a good trade for the Marlins, and we could talk about the guys that we gave up here in a second. But I think it's a good trade for the Marlins. He's again a capable major league reliever who has a ton of experience, and his numbers, both like the traditional numbers, ERA, WHIP, stuff like that, plus his advanced metrics, they're all really, really solid.
Yeah, so we have a solid bullpen guy now. That's one of the things the Marlins need to get better at. And the other thing was Adam Duvall, right? And since Kinsler left, now hopefully Duvall can punish Kinsler now with the Marlins uniform, and Duvall and Kinsler with the Phillies uniform. That would be great, like he did with the Braves uniform last year. So you were talking about the guys that left, all right? So we gave away two young guys. And let's talk a little bit about them.
Okay, so the deal that's been reported is that the Marlins are getting Floro from the Dodgers, and they're sending to Los Angeles Alex Vesia, who was a reliever that we saw for a couple games in 2020, and then a kid that they drafted in the 5th round in 2020, actually out of USC. So he pitched in Southern California before. A starting pitcher named Kyle Hurt. Those are the two names that are being reported. So, the one thing that you worry about is that both of these guys are young, right? Vesia is 24 years old. They just drafted Kyle Hurt. We don't really know what these guys can be. But the one thing that, when you look at this deal, I mean, Floro is 30 years old, but he's under team control for another few seasons. He's under team control till 2023. Okay. So, it's not a bad move. It's not like a rental, right? And then you look at Vesia's performance in the short time that we saw him last year. He's got an electric arm. He throws gas, right? But he got lit up at the major league level last year. He threw 4 1/3 innings in 2020. He gave up 7 hits, 9 earned runs, 10 runs total, 3 homers. He walked 7 guys. He had an 18.69 ERA and a 3.23 WHIP. Those are terrible numbers. He was, he lost the rest of the season essentially to COVID. He never made his way back. I don't think he pitched in the later part of the season. And then with a guy like Kyle Hurt, you just never know. We haven't seen him pitch in the Marlins system because he wasn't part of the 60-man player pool last year. So, we can look back at his tape at USC, I guess, but we have no idea with a guy like him. So, you run the risk of one of these pitchers becoming a great dominant arm, right? Can the Dodgers work their magic on Vesia, and so he doesn't give up a ton of homers, which was an issue for him, or this becomes a win for the Marlins, right? Neither of these two pitchers were in the team's top 30 prospects, right? We're not giving up high-end pitchers, and this is the sort of thing that you do with depth in a farm system, right? They have a surplus of pitching, right? And Vesia was on the 40-man roster, so he needed to go regardless. He probably wasn't going to make the bullpen. I mean, he probably would have had a shot at one of those last spots on the roster, but in all likelihood, he would have been a AAA arm. He's probably going to be a AAA arm, at least at first in Los Angeles. And Hurt is still a few seasons away at best. So Floro is a guy that's going to help the Marlins right now, is going to help the Marlins compete right now. And, it's always a gamble when you trade away young pitching prospects, but I think this was a good move for the Marlins.
Yeah, and definitely they have to be risky at some point, right? They have to go for those pieces that we think we need in order to try to get and compete somehow with the other guys, the other teams in the division that are making so many moves and so many good moves that it's been hard to keep up with them. So talking about good moves, this week, Adam Duvall is one of the new signings. He's going to be one of the outfielders. We don't have a DH this season, so that option is not available. He's going to have to play either left field or right field, and he's probably going to bring the Marlins lineup a little bit of pop, right? A little bit of more extra bases, and so that's something the Marlins really struggled last season. So how do you feel about Adam Duvall coming our way?
I'm happy with it, right? He's somebody, he fills a need in this lineup, right? The Marlins haven't had a consistent home run threat in their lineup for several years, right? For several seasons, the Marlins have lacked, as you said, that pop in the lineup. You know, we hoped that Jesus Aguilar would bring it, but I mean, he had a few last year.
Yeah.
But in 2020, it was Brian Anderson who led the team in homers, and he hit 11 of them. Duvall hit 16, right? And the thing about Duvall, 16 homers in 2020, an 833 OPS in 2020. The 16 homers would have led the Marlins. The 833 OPS, I think, would have been third on the team behind Rojas and one other player that escapes me at the moment. He has 105 home runs since 2016. He's a decent defender, and he hits pretty well left-handed pitching and right-handed pitching. So he's not somebody that, you know, you're going to have to platoon. You know, one of the interesting things about him, he came in 8th in the major leagues last year in at-bats per home run. So it was 12.4 at-bats for every home run that he hit, which is a great figure. And Fangraphs put out an article, I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before, and it noted that Duvall has the second highest home run rate when you combine 2019 and 2020, behind just Nelson Cruz. He hits a home run a little more than 7% of the time, almost 8% of the time. You know, it's home runs per plate appearance, you know. So we're looking at a guy that has the ability to hit the long ball, right? He's somebody that's hit over 30 homers in a season twice in his career, right? He did that with the Reds a few years back. He had, you know, when he was traded from Cincinnati to Atlanta, there was sort of a dip there, but he tore it up for Atlanta at the AAA level. He worked his way back to the major league level, and he was a productive bat in that really potent lineup. And I mean, we saw last year he hit 3 homers in a game against the Marlins, right? So at the very least, he's not going to do that against the Marlins anymore, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, hopefully he does that to the Braves and the Phillies and the Mets and everybody else that we have to play. So, you know, the one thing that complicates matters here, right, is it's now, you know, as you mentioned, we're probably not going to have a DH in the NL next year, although that's kind of, it's not official yet, but it's looking that way.
Right now, we don't have it.
Yeah, right now we don't have it. And then it's just crowding the outfield, right? Because this isn't a guy that you can play anywhere else. It's not like Garrett Cooper, you know, who can probably play in the outfield, but then also can play first base or whatever. And at 32 years old, you know, he kind of feels like a placeholder. But when you think about what the outfield will probably be on opening day, probably Corey Dickerson, probably Starling Marte, probably Adam Duvall, right? That gives some of these prospects a little bit more time to develop. I mean, we saw that Monte Harrison wasn't quite there yet from an offensive perspective. He's there defensively. He's there, you know, on the base paths, but he needs to develop offensively, right? Same thing for Jesus Sanchez. The big question will be, you know, does the addition of Adam Duvall push somebody like Harold Ramirez off the roster? Does it push somebody like Magner Sierra off the roster? You know, so those are the questions that the Marlins are going to have to answer. But I do think that bringing in somebody like Duvall can only help, right? It's only going to make the lineup better, more potent. You know, we've struggled for years now to score runs, and Duvall's a guy that can produce runs. So I think it was a good signing. I mean, it was a 1-year deal, $2 million this year, and then there's an option, a mutual option next year that would be $7 million if they pick it up, or a $3 million buyout. So you're talking about $5 million for Adam Duvall. That's less money than Adam Eaton signed for, less money than Jock Peterson signed for, less money than Carl Schwarber signed for, less money than Eddie Rosario signed for. I mean, I know he's a little older than all those guys, but, his numbers are right there. So, I know that people worry about the Marlins being penny pinchers a little bit, but I do think this is a good signing.
Yeah, the only thing is the defense, right? It's going to hurt us. We saw Corey Dickerson last year. We do have a great center fielder in Starling Marte, but if we're going to play Adam Duvall in right, we're not going to have that same great defense that we used to have with Monte Harrison and Lewis Brinson, just to mention a couple of those names that we have there in the system. We do have a lot of names in the outfield. Meyer Sierra is another option. John Berti played a great outfielder last year. Harold Ramirez coming back. You mentioned Garrett Cooper. We still don't know what's going to happen with Jesus Sanchez. He's another option there. J.J. Bleday is coming up in the system as well. So you have six, seven, eight guys that are behind the guys that are going to start this season, because look at the outfield right now. It's Marte, Dickerson, and Duval. Those guys are probably not going to be there next year, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, we could have going into 2022, it could be completely different outfield, and because Marte and Dickerson are on, and Duval, they're all on 1-year deals, right? Yeah. I mean, Duval has an option, so he might be around a little bit longer than that. But you're right, the entire outfield could turn over a year from now. But when you look at some of the prospects, like you mentioned, J.J. Bleday, Gerard Encarnacion is on the 40-man roster. He's an outfielder. You mentioned Jesus Sanchez. And then some of the other guys, I mean, spring training, I'm sure we'll get to it, but some of the younger outfield prospects are coming to spring training for the first time, And so there's a ton of competition in the outfield. But one of the things that I guess we forget about is that most of those prospects were not part of the 60-man player pool. So they lost a whole year of development last year. There was no minor league season. I mean, some of them were able to, play a little bit at the alternate training site in Jupiter. But even then, I mean, how much real development is happening outside of a game? I mean, I know they have practice and stuff like that, which is all very valuable, but you really see the growth in the games. So, this outfield feels a little bit like a transitional outfield, but I also think that those guys, I mean, if Corey Dickerson, hits to his averages, like his career averages, he's going to be better in 2021 than he was in 2020. Marte, we know, is a talented offensive player. We've seen what Duval can do. So these are all guys that, if they're right, can help this team win. And I guess the luxury that the Marlins have, particularly with those guys on 1-year deals, if the team, starts off slowly, or these guys, the veterans, start off slowly, at that point, maybe the Marlins can flip them and allow the prospects a little bit of, major league development time, but spring training is going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and that's good. It's good at having a lot of options, and we talked a lot about these guys that can be a little bit of a bridge between the two gaps, right? Letting these guys develop in the minor league system and not rush them up into the majors. We saw what happened with a lot of haters last year that had to come up and didn't quite perform as we were expecting, and that also can hurt in the long run. So that's a good thing that we have these players right now. Andrew Benitendi ended up in Kansas City, of all places. I don't know what happened there. I don't know why the Royals did that. I don't know I know what the Rexes were trying to do, but I don't quite understand the Royals' plan there. But that's as cheap as that was, I mean, they not only got Benintendi, but they also got cash to pay for that contract. So they're going to end up paying a little bit around $4 million or so, which is great for a player like Benintendi. And, well, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But that's
I mean, the Red Sox asking price must have been too high for the Marlins, because once the Marlins, I think, did that happen the same day that the Duval deal happened? I mean, the Marlins must have stepped away and then picked up Duval, and then whatever leverage the Red Sox had at that point just bottomed out, because you're right. the price for acquiring Benintendi dropped significantly for the Royals. I think the Mets were involved in that trade
The
too.
Mets were involved as well. They got one player.
Yeah.
The Mets are everywhere right now.
Yeah. They signed Jonathan Villar. I mean,
they did. They almost got Terrell Bauer. They offered more money. He just knew the Mets were not going to win the World Series, and he decided to go to the Dodgers, which is kind of smart. So, all right, to finish up this Marlins report, we're gonna let's go and talk a little bit about the spring training invitations that were sent up there. Which players are going to be invited to the spring training? Which ones do you think have a real shot to making the 40-man roster?
So the invites, I think they've done 2 different batches of invites. They did one in January with a handful of guys, including Sandy Leon, who they picked up. Eddie Alvarez was in that initial group that was invited, and then they did I guess the rest of the prospects this week. And when you think about I think it's 25 guys in total that were the non-roster invitees, and you add those to the 40-man roster guys, there are some really, really interesting names on this list. And the ones that kind of stand out for Marlins fans right now are J.J. Bleday and Max Meyer. Right, J.J. Bleday was the number 4 overall pick in 2019, and he's the guy that everybody's talking about. He's the number 2 overall prospect for the Marlins, according to MLB Pipeline. 23 years old, left-handed hitter, somebody who really controls the strike zone. He has hard contact to all fields. He's got the potential to be like a 30 home run guy down the line. So a really exciting talent. He had a taste of spring training last year before the COVID shutdown. He played in 9 games. He went 3 for 13. Nothing crazy, right? Nothing amazing. Yeah. But he did get a little bit of exposure. So it'll be interesting to see, especially since the Marlins have added Duval. Does Bleday make a push to make the roster, right? Because you're not going to put him on the major league roster without him playing every day, right? He's not going to end up on the bench. You're gonna have him in the minors until he's ready to contribute at the major league level. So, whatever intrigue I guess was surrounding Bleday and some of those other outfield prospects kind of got undercut a little bit by the addition of Duval. But even just seeing him, and hopefully we can see him, right? They still haven't signed their TV deal, so I don't even know how we're gonna watch these games. Hopefully he, does what everybody expects him to do, which is hit consistently. The other big name, I guess, is Max Meyer, the number 3 overall pick last year. He's the number 3 prospect in the system. He's a guy that could be a starter, could be a reliever. He's got this great wipeout slider that, he uses to rack up the strikeouts. He's got a good four-seamer, a fading changeup. I mean, he's somebody that has potentially front line of the rotation talent, right? When you think about some of the other sort of undersized starters, people have compared him to Roy Oswalt or Tim Lincecum. And if you think about those 2 guys, if he can get anywhere close to that level, the Marlins are in business with those 2. So those are probably the 2 biggest names on the 40-man roster. I mean, we've mentioned Gerard Encarnacion already. We mentioned Jesus Sanchez already. Jose Devers is on the 40-man roster. So all of them will be at spring training. But some of the other interesting names, the other outfield prospects that have been forgotten, I guess. Yeah. Peyton Burdick, Cameron Meisner, and Connor Scott are all coming to spring training. And these are all young guys. I mean, Burdick and Meisner were drafted in the 2nd and the 3rd round in 2019. They're both 23 years old, so they're getting close to the major league level. And then Connor Scott was actually a first-round pick, 13th overall in 2018.
From high school, right?
From high school, though.
I remember that name.
Yeah, he's only 21 years old, so he's somebody that's been kind of playing over his age, I guess.
Yeah.
And he's probably not going to make the roster, obviously, right? But it'll be interesting to see him. Will Banfield is the club's top catching prospect. He's going to be at spring training. He was part of the 60-man player pool, but I think he ended up sidelined with COVID as well. So he might have gotten some reps in at the alternate training site, but it'll be interesting to see if he can hit at all, right? He's supposed to be a good defender, but the bat is going to be the thing that might carry him to the major league level. Because if he can hit, then maybe they have something. But I'm not sure if he can hit. Some of the other, Eddie Alvarez we've mentioned. Nasim Nunez will be fun to watch. A 20-year-old shortstop that they drafted in the second round in 2019. A-Rod's nephew, Joe Dunand, who's actually from down here. He went to Gulliver, I think. He had a great winter in the Dominican Republic. He's probably the next in line for third base. So, God forbid something happens to Brian Anderson, if he gets hurt or if he gets traded or whatever. John Birdie would probably take over at third base, but Joe Dunand is the next prospect in line at third base. So that could be interesting. And then, some of the pitchers, a ton of pitchers are coming. But some of the interesting ones, they picked up Jake Fishman, a left-handed guy, Rule 5 guy in the minor leagues. He'll be there. Zach Mccambley and Kyle Nicklaus. They were drafted last year, second round and third round guys, college guys who are polished and moving through the system, or will move through the system quickly, I guess. And then Will Stewart, who's the last prospect from the JT Realmuto trade,
right?
The one that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
He's going to spring training as well. He's a left-handed pitcher, 23 years old, probably a AAA arm, but it'll be interesting to see if there's anything there, especially considering, we've got Sixto up at the major league level, Alfaro, and then so Will Stewart is sort of the other piece from that trade. So it'll be interesting to see, how it all shakes out. Neither of the Mesas, I guess, have been invited. No Victor, no Victor Jr. So, I guess we'll see with them, but
yeah,
some of the really interesting prospects are there.
That looks like $5 million that just didn't really work out, right?
Yeah. It's tough. International scouting is tough, right?
Yeah.
Especially, and scouting in Cuba is probably tough on top of that.
Yeah, so. And there was so much expectation with these guys, and the Marlins were trying to do. They had the pressure to kind of build this franchise around. The older guys should be already trying to fight for a spot in the team. There's no excuse. I guess the younger one has a little bit more room to work with, but still, not being invited to these type of situations seems like they haven't performed at this level, and that's it.
Yeah. It's tough. It's disappointing because you want to see, like you said. They paid $5 million for one of them. I forget which one.
For the older one.
Yeah, I forget if it's Victor or Victor Jr. Why they have the same name, I'm not entirely sure, but it is a little disappointing for them not to get the call. But again, so many of the really interesting prospects that the Marlins have. Listen, ESPN ranked the Marlins farm system the number 2 system in the league right now, behind Tampa Bay. So we're getting to see a lot of these young players, and we're also getting to see the Marlins use the farm system to improve the major league club with the trade that happened today. So, it's exciting to think about, what they're doing with some of these prospects.
Right. So before we go, I want to read one comment here that came up with Enrique Comas. Thank you for sending your messages, your comments. He says, I'm disappointed with the Marlins offseason. Duval and Kinsler are aging vets past their time. Well, Kinsler is not going to be here anyway, and Duval, he was one of the options. We talked about it. It was either him, Puig, and Benintendi, or that was kind of the target the Marlins were going for. So,
yeah, listen, when you think about it, like I said earlier, like Adam Eaton, Jock Peterson, Kyle Schwarber, Eddie Rosario. I know that a lot of Marlins fans would have liked Rosario.
And he was cheap too.
And he was cheap, right? I think he signed for $8 million, and we're getting Duval for $5 million, right? So, but the thing that we have to remember, number one, they picked up Starling Marte's option, which was an off-season move, right? So you have to think about that. I know of course you were going to pick up the option, but it is sort of what it is. They had to, and this team is strapped for cash. There's no TV deal. There's no stadium naming rights.
They could have picked the option and trade the guy, and they didn't do it.
Right. So, it's on the surface, it's disappointing, right? But they're kind of working through improving the roster within their means, right? They're not the Yankees, they're not the Dodgers, they're not the new look Mets, right? That have billions of dollars at their disposal. The unfortunate reality is they're a small market team from like a financial perspective, and they have to spend their money carefully until they get that new TV deal, until they sell the stadium naming rights. Once those things happen, then we'll start to see them spend more money, right? But they're bringing in a guy in Floro who's making less than $1 million, and he's going to be better than Kinsler, who they would have been paying $2 million, and that if he makes the Phillies, they're going to have to pay him $3 million, right? And I'd rather have Floro at $975,000, which is what they're going to pay him, versus Kinsler at $2 million. So they have to be really targeted with what they're doing, and I understand the frustration. Trust me, I do wish that they could have made a bigger move, but hopefully it all works out, right?
Yeah, hopefully, like Enrique said, the Mets are a little bit better right now. And don't even talk about the Dodgers and Padres rotation. That looks like impossible to beat. But I'll still go with the Marlins in a 1-1.
In the long run, absolutely. They're going to have the youngest rotation. I think Sandy's 25 and Eliezer's 25, and everybody else is younger than that. And so it's exciting to see what that rotation can look like.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there in the East Division. So thank you guys for joining us for this Marlins report. Like we've been doing all these weeks, we're trying to do at least one of them per week. This week we had two because we had the Adam Duval signing, and we did a quick report there. But for sure we're gonna do this. For now, it's gonna be every Friday, but we'll let you know anyway whenever it comes up. So thank you very much. If you can, go and try the Marlins Lager. I think this is my favorite. I tried the APA, but I think I like it.
Tropical Bay IPA is really good too, but the Marlins Lager, if you're a Marlins fan, you got to drink it.
You have to.
It's tasty.
That's just the way to go, I guess. So thank you guys. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel here on 5 Reasons. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon here, probably tomorrow. I think the Heat plays tomorrow, so we'll see you tomorrow here in the pregame show for the Miami Heat. Have a good night. Enjoy the weekend. Be safe. Be smart. And we'll see you soon here to talk a little bit more baseball in the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Bye-bye.